On a warm spring night of May 3rd, 2007, a quiet holiday resort in southern Europe became the center of one of the most disturbing mysteries in modern true crime. A 3-year-old girl had gone to sleep in a small vacation apartment while her parents enjoyed dinner just a short walk away. Everything seemed normal, but when her mother returned later that night to check on the children, she noticed something strange. The bedroom door was open wider than she remembered. The window was open. The curtains were moving slowly in the night breeze, and the little girl's bed was empty. Her name was Madeleine McCann. Within hours, her disappearance would spark a worldwide investigation in one of the most haunting mysteries ever recorded. But what investigators discovered years later would introduce a suspect who had been living near the resort the entire time. And that revelation would make the case even more chilling. To understand how this tragedy unfolded, we have to go back to the beginning. In early May of 2007, Madeleine's parents, Kate McCann and Gerry McCann, traveled from the United Kingdom to the small seaside town of Praia da Luz in Portugal. The trip was supposed to be a relaxing family vacation. Both parents were doctors, and they had brought their 3 children along for the holiday. Madeleine and her 2 younger twin siblings. The family stayed in a ground-floor apartment at a resort complex, along with several friends and their families. Each evening, the adults would meet for dinner at a nearby restaurant while the children slept in their apartments. The restaurant was only about a minute's walk away. The parents believed they could simply take turns checking on the children throughout the evening. It was a routine they had followed several nights already, but on the night of May 3rd, that routine would suddenly turn into a nightmare. And what happened during the next few hours would shock the world. That evening began like any other, around 7:30 p.m. The children were put to bed shortly afterward. The adults gathered at the nearby restaurant for dinner throughout the evening. The parents took turns, leaving the table to check on the sleeping children. At around 9 p.m., Gerry McCann went to check on the apartment. Everything appeared normal. The room was quiet. The children were still asleep. Nothing seemed out of place. But less than an hour later, everything changed. At approximately 10 p.m., Kate McCann walked back to the apartment for another routine check. As she approached the bedroom, she immediately sensed something was wrong. The bedroom door was open wider than she remembered leaving it. The window was open. The curtains were blowing in the wind. At first, she thought maybe Madeleine had gotten up, but when she stepped inside the room, the sight in front of her sent a wave of panic through her body, and Madeleine's bed was empty. At first, Kate searched the apartment frantically. She looked under the beds. She checked the bathroom, but Madeleine was nowhere to be found. Within seconds, panic turned into terror. The twins were still sleeping peacefully in their cribs. Kate ran back toward the restaurant, shouting the words that would soon spread across the world. Madeleine's gone. Someone's taken her. The peaceful resort town was suddenly thrown into chaos. Friends, staff members, and nearby guests began searching the surrounding streets and buildings. Portuguese police were called and soon arrived at the apartment. But the early hours of the investigation would later become highly controversial. The apartment was not immediately sealed as a crime scene. Dozens of people had already walked through the room during the search, and investigators would later fear that crucially, evidence may have been accidentally destroyed. But the most terrifying question still remained unanswered. Who had taken Madeleine McCann? As the hours passed, with no sign of the missing girl, the search operation quickly expanded. Police dogs were brought in. Search teams combed through nearby streets, beaches, and countryside. Roadblocks were set up in the surrounding areas. Soon, the story exploded across international media. Pictures of Madeleine McCann appeared everywhere. Television screens, newspapers, and missing person posters across multiple countries. Millions of people around the world followed the case. But despite the massive search effort, there was still no clear answer. And as investigators dug deeper into the case, the mystery only grew more complicated. Years later, a shocking discovery about a man living near the resort would reignite the investigation once again. For years, investigators explored many different theories. Some believed Madeleine had been kidnapped by human traffickers. Others suspected a burglary gone wrong. At one point, Portuguese authorities even investigated Madeleine's own parents as possible suspects, but no charges were ever filed. Eventually, the case grew cold. Years passed without any major breakthroughs. Then, in 2020, German investigators announced a major development. They had identified a suspect believed to be connected to the disappearance. His name was Christian Brueckner. Brueckner was a convicted criminal who had been living in the same region of Portugal at the time Madeleine vanished. Investigators later discovered he had a long history of burglary, drug trafficking, and violent crimes. Phone records even placed him near the resort around the time Madeleine disappeared. But despite these disturbing discoveries, the full truth about what happened that night remains unknown. Today, more than 15 years later, the disappearance of Madeleine McCann remains one of the most haunting mysteries in modern true crime. The apartment in Praia da Luz still stands. Tourists still visit the quiet coastal town in Portugal. But the events of that night continue to leave unanswered questions. Madeleine's parents have never stopped searching for answers. They continue to hope that one day the truth about what happened to their daughter will finally come to light. Somewhere, someone may know exactly what happened that night, and until that truth is revealed, the mystery of Madeleine McCann will continue to haunt the world. What do you think really happened to Madeleine McCann? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy true crime stories like this, make sure to subscribe to Midnight Crime Stories for more disturbing true crime stories.